Well, the reason I ask is because we have a monster here, a being, a long time ago. Now, she was completely made out of stone. And the way she would hunt would be by shape-shifting. And what she would hunt would be human liver. And not just any kind of liver. She enjoyed children's livers. Now, what she would do, she would come up and she would shapeshift into an elderly lady or a man, whoever, and she would go up to the unsuspecting child and say, "Come here, my child. Come here. Let me braid your hair." The child unknowingly will go up to her. She'll start brushing, combing, and start braiding the hair, start singing, and the child will eventually fall asleep. Now what would happen was that she would get her finger, a spearfinger, which would come to a very sharp point like an awl. And she would get it to a point where the liver would be out, and she would go inside and she would take it. Now the reason why she enjoyed children's livers is because it was innocent, it was pure, sweet. And the child would not have any recollection of the liver being taken out, and not even remembering. Now there would be no sign of the liver being taken out either. So, eventually the child would get sick and then die. And then later on, the Cherokee couldn't trust each other. So we were pointing fingers at one another saying, "You could be Spearfinger, no, you could be Spearfinger, no, you could be her." So finally, around September, we decided to call a council. And we decided to wait until around this time of year, around late October. And once we went out, we dug a big old pit. And in that pit, we had some sticks and we laid some dirt on it and some leaves to make it look like the trail hadn't been bothered. Then we set a fire. As we set that fire, Spearfinger, she was walking on the trail that day. And she happened to look up. And she seen the smoke coming from the horizon. Boy, she smiled almost toothless smile. She knew the Cherokee were out and she knew she was going to eat well. And so as she was walking in that direction, she was singing to herself about how much she was going to enjoy eating those livers. So finally, she stepped on that pit. And when she stepped on that pit, she fell right through. And boy, she went up and she was angry. And so she started climbing and clawing her way out of that pit. And our warriors were all around her and they were shooting their arrows, but they had no effect because she was made of stone. Now, throughout this entire time, you see Spearfinger, hear Spearfinger, and see her. She's saying the most ungodly things. She's saying that how she was going to kill their kids in front of them, how she was going to enjoy it. She was going to kill them slowly. She was going to torture them, and they couldn't do a thing about it. Then after that was going to be the adults. So finally, she was climbing up. There was a small bird that comes flying down, and it started singing, "The heart, the heart, the heart, the heart." Well, one of our warriors, he took that as a sign. He got his arrow. He withdrew it. And as soon as he got that perfect shot, he released it. And that arrow flew straight, and it hit her where the heart would be at. Boom, it just bounced off. Man, she was almost out. She just needed that one little bit to reach up before she got out. But then there was another small bird. It was the chickadee. When the chickadee comes flying down, he swoops around her hand. She sees that. She falls back into the pit, and she starts cowering. And one of our warriors, he took that as a sign. He got his arrow. He withdrew it. He waited for that perfect shot. As soon as he got it, he released that arrow, and that arrow flew so straight, boom, it pierced her in the heart. That was where her hand, that's the only part of her hand that could not be shape-shifted. It's vulnerable. When that arrow went through there, she gasped. She fell over dead. Now the warrior that killed her, he was awarded her finger. He wrapped it up in buckskin and he hid it somewhere here in the mountains. Now the reason why we tell this story is to not, just scare the kids. Even though that's part of it. We tell it because we want to warn them to not trust strangers. Because anyone nowadays, if you look at certain people, it could be a stranger, it could even be a loved one too, such as an aunt, uncle, mom, father. They could take those kids away from you, just like Spearfinger did with ours. And that's your story of Spearfinger. Now, I do tend to ask, and it's okay if you don't want to answer, how many of you believe in ghosts? Alright, how many of you don't believe in ghosts? Alright. So, if I may ask, you can say yes, you don't have to talk about it, I'm not going to force you to talk about it. How many of you that believe in ghosts had that personal experience? That was just like, oh my goodness, something I cannot talk about up until I'm dead. Alright, and I only seen like one hand that rose up for not believing in ghosts. So what's your reason?
I just never experienced anything weird or
Okay.
anything like that. So.
Alright, that's perfectly fine. Now here, we do have spirits. And I'm not talking about the inebriation variety of spirits. No, what I'm saying is that we do have spirits where they can either help you or they can lead you off somewhere. Now, with what we call them little people. Now, to us, they're actual people, but to some folks, different cultures, you might know them as sprites, or you might know them as fairies, or you might know them as gnomes. Now, with the little people, they, depending on how you treat them, they can either, as I mentioned, they can either help you or they can lead you off. How many of you have been up in the Appalachian Mountains or just in the mountains in general, and it had gotten completely silent, where no animals, no birds, no bugs, nothing? Okay. How many of you have heard to always look around to make sure that there's no predators?
Yep.
All right. Now, how many of you have had something thrown at you while it was quiet? Okay, you have? Okay. And was it a rock or was it a steel?
It was a limb.
It was a limb? All right. So when you're out there with the little people, it was a big person? Okay.
Sasquatch.
Okay, well now we do have a story that is very similar to Sasquatch. But he's not going to be hairy or anything like that. We called him Judaculla. He was
Judah what? I'm sorry?
Judaculla. Yeah, Judaculla. He came from the heavens and landed in Cullowhee, North Carolina, which is roughly about 30 minutes away from here. And if you go up there, there is a plaque in the rock where you see him, where he landed at, and you see his footprint and where he landed. And that's up there in Cullowhee. We call it Judaculla Rock. So if you're ever up in Cullowhee, North Carolina, just take a look up there and you'll see that. But with the little people, though, they, to warn you if there's any immediate danger, or if they do not like you, they will throw stuff at you. Now, this one right here is actually a personal experience of mine with this. Now, with that, I was about maybe 16 years old. And me and my older brother, we were walking the trail up here at the farmstead, where going towards Tennessee, a place over there towards the Blue Ridge and the Great Smoky Mountains. So we were walking that trail. And as we were walking, we came to one of the benches, and we decided to just sit there and just, take in the sounds and everything. It was probably roughly about 11:30 that night. The next thing you know, from a distance, we see a light. And as we see that light, it was coming closer. And as it got closer, we happened to notice the figure of a man. Only probably about maybe that tall, probably to my kneecap. And as he comes up, you just see his little old lantern. He looks up at us. And all he does is just smile. Nods his head. Keeps walking. Now at the moment, me and my brother were like really excited. Like, oh my goodness, we just experienced this, you know. But my brother, he told me, do not talk about it for 7 years. Because in that time, either you or somebody in your family will die within 7 days. The reason for that is because the little people do not like to be talked about once they have been seen. They are, I guess, like what you call magic. They will harm you in every sense of the word, but it's not going to be the most conventional way. They will harm you only if you talk about them within that 7 years, or if you're out there making fun of them. So with that experience, it has been over 7 years. It's been close to about maybe 13 years now, maybe 14. So I can't math. I'm 31 now, so if somebody wants to quickly calculate that up in their heads for me, that's welcome to. But yeah, that's a personal experience of mine that I've had. Now another personal experience that it wasn't me, but it's a family story. It's something that my mom experienced when she was little. Now with this one, how many of you believe in black magic?
Ooh.
Okay. How many of you believe in voodoo? Okay. All right. Well, here we call our black magic users Sgili, which translates to witch. Now, when we call them witches, we're not talking about the kind of witches that you see in Looney Tunes. No. These are everyday people. These could be basically be your grandfather, grandmother, anyone that you might be close to. Now they do something that we call medicine work. They do the dark side of it, and what they do, they will take anything that is offered to them in order to make a person either happy or hurt them. Now what I mean by making somebody happy, I'm not talking about that person that is already happy enough. I'm talking about somebody who could be jealous of them. Now, the person that's jealous, they could be maybe, if they're jealous of that person, they could be maybe have a new car, maybe got a family that they're proud of, stuff like that. Now the reason for it is because they want that person harmed. They either want their family to be broken up, they either want them to be put in the hospital, stuff like that. Now what they do is that they night travel. They only come out at night around this time, maybe even a bit later. Now if two night travelers happen to meet up with one another, what they will do, they'll just simply look at each other, smile, nod, and keep walking on in their direction. Because they know what they're about to do. Now certain folks, they can be so powerful in that part of the medicine that they can even make their own spirit be like a fireball. And they'll go into the sky and they'll circle around and they'll go into that direction of who their victim is. Now this one that I'm going to tell you was happening to one of my mom's family members. She was actually around maybe 75, 80 years old. And she was sick. She had cancer. And she was getting tired that night. It was roughly around this time. And she gets up and then she goes to bed. You know, my grandma, she was over there visiting. And she was getting ready to leave. Now as she was leaving, they heard a gunshot happen on the ridge there. And they was like, oh well, somebody's out there just shooting to have fun. Well, as soon as my grandma and my mom got over to their house, the phone rang. And I said, you need to get over here quick. She's about to pass. Well, they go on over. And as they get over there, they go into the room where she was at. And there she was, laying in bed. She was coughing up blood and chunks of meat. And in that chunk of meat they happened to look, and there was these small little pellets from a shotgun that was popping out too. She had been caught doing something. At the same time, my grandfather, he was in the back room and he happened to look out the window there and he just said, "Hey boys, Hannah." They're like, "What?" Look. They look out the window, they're like, What is it? I don't see nothing." On the screen. Look. And they got to looking on the screen. And what do they see? They see a face of a woman. And her nose was shape-shifting into a pig. And they could hear that woman oinking on that screen. Well, all this time they were freaking out. My mom, she seen it and she got scared. And my aunt and my grandfather, he said, "Don't get scared now." He said, "If you show it fear, it's going to get stronger." Well, my uncles and my grandfather, they got that screen out and they went out to the burn pit and they started setting in the blaze. Now when they were setting in the blaze, that scream, that woman, that face, started screaming. And as it was screaming, it was starting to turn into the squeals of a pig. And at the same time, that woman who was coughing up that blood and everything, she happened to get in the ambulance. She was getting in the ambulance. She screamed on the way. There's no way that my uncles and my grandfather could have heard her scream from just down the road there in that ambulance.
Group 1. She might be
And
group 1.
she passed on.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, that's one of my family stories that I just told right there. And my mom, she even still to this day. Oh really? Yeah, that was one of my family stories. Thank you.
Okay, so this stop right here is where the women's locker room is right behind me. Then down there we have the men's locker room. The only one that's open right now is this one right here. I just don't know. But this locker room, this whole area actually, multiple times there have been people that have been changing at the end of the day or just down here by themselves, like a costumer for example. And multiple times they have heard a woman humming and singing a song. They can't really hear what it is, but they can hear that little tune that she's humming. Walk back and forth down this whole way, and they think it's just another worker. But when they get up, right before they're crossing the thresholds of these doors, it stops like they can hear them. And whenever they poke their head out, there's nobody ever here. All right, everybody. So this right here, this would be where the basket weavers sit and work on baskets all day. Now there have been multiple times where it's gotten to the point where it's so common they actually start to just kind of ignore it. They can see or hear somebody walking back and forth behind here, but really nobody ever goes back there except for the basket weavers themselves. Back there, there's actually a, you can go back there, there's a little trail right here, but back there is a little fireplace, and there's a metal tub on it. That's where they dye all their splints. And because there's a fire there, at the end of the day, one of our managers was actually walking around at the end of the day, putting all the fires out. He got to this basket, or this little fire pit back here, and when he went to dump that bucket of water onto that fire, he actually felt like something was kind of like pressured on his shoulder, like it was stopping. At first, he didn't think anything of it. So he just kind of stood back up, fixed that bucket a little bit, went to dump it out again. This time, he said it felt harder, like a hand was pressing on his shoulder, stopping him from dumping that water out. Huh. So he stepped back and he just said, "Hey, all I'm doing is putting this fire out so that our workplace doesn't burn down overnight. Once this is out, I will go and I will leave you alone and I will go home." Yeah. He waited a second. Finally, he went and tried it again, and this time he was able to put the fire out with no problem. People have, like I said, have seen somebody in here, and right up to this next one, actually, right up there. Somebody sitting there. When they get to a clear view of that person is gone. So we don't know who it is that they see, but there is somebody that actually sits here and up there. But same thing, look around here for a few minutes. You can go back here on this trail back there if you want to go to that fireplace and take any pictures over there.
But I think that's natural.
Yeah, they probably I do know animals are quiet here, something they should be, but
You're quiet and
if you're by yourself. Alright, so you can kind of see it, these little tea lights right behind me. We're about to go up this little path. It is very rough, and there are some steps there. Does anybody here feel like they cannot make them? There's only about 3 steps, and you can kind of see a lot of roots sticking up right there. Does anybody feel like they cannot make it up there? The chairs or benches that are on them. We have gotten photos of some people sitting there. They either be white and misty, or they look like a shadow figure. Sure. People have caught that sitting there, and there is a small little bridge that we'll get to, and I'll tell you more about what I actually was there for when that happened. Because a few years ago, we did have the ghost hunters come through here. If you remember the ghost hunters TV show, Steve and Jason, they did come through here, and on that walk, I actually was there when they seen something there. Once we get to that, I'll let you know, but for right now,
I remember that.
Alright, so this little spot right here, like I mentioned, the ghost hunters did come through, and they actually pulled out one of these little cameras, and I forget what it's called, but what it does basically, if it detects any human-shaped object, it'll outline it with little dots and little lines on it. And we actually stopped right here. They pointed it across this bridge, and right where you all are standing over there at the end of the bridge, there was actually a person that started to form there, that eventually it was a full person that was outlined in those sticks. And then it started slowly moving towards all of us standing here. Once it got to about the middle of the bridge right there, it finally just disappeared completely. They couldn't ever get it to show up again, but that's a little thing that they did see right here. So any pictures you want to take right here as we go through, feel free to take them.
Yes, I've been hearing that.
You hear that?
Yeah. Probably just a cougar.
No.
Mom!
Sasquatch.
Yeah. No, Sasquatch just sounded so slutty. Mom, take that.
Alright, we're gonna go check out the parkway for a while. Why not? Elk crossing sign. River's pretty over there. You may be able to see it. If not, I'm going to get it with the drone anyway in just a bit. Klingman's Dome is the top. It's like 6,000 feet. May not be that high. I don't remember. I'll tell you somewhere. There's ice up the top. Nice valley. I can't get over the ice at the top. Just wanted to stop here because I think this is like the most beautiful lake Why not? It's awesome. Was on the way. Good morning, welcome back to the channel. I'm on my way back home from Cherokee. I just wanted to check in and tell you thanks for joining me on this trip. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I just made a wrong turn. But have a good one. See ya.